So for the recording, and just say this, the faculty expectations and fellowship syllabus is going to be located in our Google Drive. Everybody will receive this or has received this link, and then it's also outlined in this document, which I will be emailing out. It is under fellowship documents. So there's just the fellowship syllabus, and then there's also the faculty expectations. That is where that can be found. We have everybody's contact information here. Been here for all of the faculty expectations that have kind of come to my mind. Like I said, it's a bit of a working document right now, so this might have a little bit more added to it. But we have the outline of the purpose, which looks the same on the fellow side. And then this is, again, like I said, depending on kind of the budgetary decisions here. But I think we had all discussed that the NAPCRG annual meeting and kind of the kickoff is likely where we'd want to put some of the funds to establish those relationships. The other in-person meetings would not be required unless, you are wanting to, and we have the funds to do so. There is absolutely an expectation, though, that for all of the scheduled virtual meetings and the didactic sessions that you will be in attendance. These are the first Wednesday afternoon of every month, but not March, just because we have ADFM in late February. So it kind of, and we will meet there, so we won't have it at that time. Basically, we know things are going to come up. You might not be able to make all of them. I have sent out the calendar invitation, so hopefully you can see if there is something that is already a conflict and let us know. The way that the groups are kind of broken down is that you will have multiple faculty members in each in your group. And so our request here is just that you coordinate with your other faculty members to let them know if you're not going to be able to attend, so that we don't wind up to a session with one group having no faculty members at all, and then kind of end up in a funky spot. So that is something, and again, you can refer right back to all of the contact information, and we'll go over who is in your group later. But that's just something, and then also just letting at least myself know. You don't have to send a million emails to everyone, but at least letting me know so I can plan for that. Okay, and then for the large group meetings, this is all of the fellows will have a reading assignment, and then usually there will also be an assignment, a homework assignment. And so part of the expectation of the faculty will also be to read and review the reading materials, just to be able to contribute and participate, and also to check in on the homework, which I will go into more detail with here. And this is all broken down. Essentially, what we are asking for here is good participation with the fellows, just to make sure that they feel like they're actually receiving coaching, which is outlined here. All right, and then so this process is one that we'll explain a little bit more. So the fellows required products. Key element will be that they have some required assignments, and we would like it to be part of the responsibility of the faculty to be checking in regularly with those. Stephen created a great form here to help us track these. Again, all of this is in our Google Drive folders, but essentially we have a list of the assignments that we have. So the very first one, the research capacity status survey, and here with the due date. So this will be after we meet in NAPCRG. That'll be their first meeting afterward, which is December 7th. And we have a better outline, I think, down here of the groups. But essentially, I'll go in. Everybody will have access to this here, products and assignments. They will be able to reference whether they are group 1 or group 2. Click in here, and then I will have a folder each with all of these names. They click in, they'll basically just be responsible with putting in the document with their last name, first name. I will then go in, see who has, say I have, Amy's, Alexis, Brandon's, but not Sarah, Randy, Joan, whatever. I complete with whoever has submitted them on time. Then it will be essentially your job. I will update that very regularly, check in with the faculty regularly to let them know, hey, this person hasn't turned in 1, 2, or 3 things. And then that will kind of just fall back on you to say, okay, I've noticed that Amy has not submitted 3 different things. I can't really talk to her. We can't work on this. That responsibility then hops to just like, how do I have a conversation with whoever on what is not being turned in, or if something is going on, something's prohibiting them from kind of doing the work to participate. And that is probably all I have for there. Was there any other thing that you guys wanted to hop in on that tracking process, Pete, Stephen?
Yeah, for the tracking process, not everybody needs to review all papers. It's okay to have one faculty primarily in charge of any given assignment, and then if it needs to be shared or sent out to somebody else, that's fine. And however you decide to do it in your group, it can be up to you whether you want one person to review all the assignments for one individual, or whether you want to split off, take turns taking care of, one person does the entire needs assessment, another person does everybody's stakeholder maps, however you want to do that. But that is going to need to get filled out by you all, the faculty mentors yourselves, so that Jesse knows how to forward things. And if you could please try to get that done before we introduce it to the fellows at NAPCRIG.
That's a great idea, Stephen. So also, I mean, that's going to be critical to me to know what the heck we're asking them to do.
Yeah.
To have gone through it myself.
Yeah, and so in terms of what are going to be the requirements of the deliverable, to be honest, that's a frontier of what Pete and I need to develop as a good rubric for the faculty. I'm not entirely certain that's going to be created in the class of the year 2022 to 2023. Potentially for some of them, it's something that we're working on currently. So last year, the big thing that we worked on was the general outline. This year, we're working on solidifying some of our processes around making sure the deliverables work. I think that's going to be something more for the future, but we definitely should have some discussions about it, and certainly send emails if you have any questions, and potentially the responses to those emails will provide the seed for future documents explaining the process to people. So yeah, don't feel like you have to move forward blind about what you're doing. We can certainly describe it, but we don't have something built right now that I can point you to.
I mean, I love the idea, Stephen, of this first faculty, this first class being a place where we learn about things, try things. And, one of our goals is to create that rubric moving forward.
Yeah. Awesome. So that process, I'm sure we will be checking in a lot throughout the year on just how that's going, how that's working, if it feels like it's working well or if it's clunky, but we'll do everything to kind of keep checking in on that and making sure it's going smoothly. And then this, I just kept this all in here because I feel like it is good context to just know what the fellows are needing to get out of this. But essentially, this is a repeat of their syllabus and just some of the goals. And then let's go over the course timeline and the large group events. These are what you all just got spammed in your inbox with. These will all be held. Like I said, if you know right now that there's going to be a conflict, great. Let me know. I can track that. We're tracking attendance and everything like that too. So if you know you have a vacation planned in June or July and you won't be able to make it, it's just better to know in advance as far as I can so that we can plan it out. All right, so here is probably what you would like to see. So the group divisions for the assignments and faculty group. So Ian, you will be on with Debbie and Benny. Does he prefer to go by Benny or Benjamin? Yes, okay, Benny. And I don't know if Pete and Stephen, if you guys want to talk at all about the business folks, because I know we have Will and Benny is also from the business side, right? of just kind of like the breakdown of these groups?
So a unique aspect of our fellowship is we have business mentors. They are PhDs in organizational development. And so that's a unique aspect. They're going to be more involved. They won't necessarily be attending the meetings, but they're going to provide an interesting perspective, especially as we talk about culture change and change management and assistance with the strategic planning process. And so it's a really, really unique aspect of this fellowship.
They will be helping us as we go through the curriculum, making sure that we're sticking with good business leadership principles, and potentially also helping with the scholarly project, which we can talk more about here in a bit.
Fantastic. So that will be how the groups divided, and these will be the folks. So Ian, say you have, that vacation plan or whatnot, then Debbie and Benny would be who you would want to contact and just let them know, hey, by the way, I'm also going to be out. And yeah, so we can all kind of coordinate together. Great. And then we will have small groups. These I have not yet sent you the invitations to, but we will set that up just so there is no issues with you having to worry about, oh, I didn't hold this time or I wasn't aware. So I will be sending out those invitations, and that is basically a great time for you guys to just have breakdown of what happened in the large group, but with your smaller group, to work on the scholarly projects and also to check in on those assignments. And that's all pretty clearly broken down here.
In general, the assignments are scheduled to be due from the fellows to the faculty 2 weeks prior, no later than 2 weeks prior to those small group sessions. And then that gives 2 weeks before the small group before the next large group session. So you can talk about the assignments during these small group sessions, and then they'll have a couple of weeks after these small group sessions before they need to deliver it. And then you'll have 2 weeks before the next large group session. And the idea is that the assignment is taken care of and off their plate, and feedback given back so that they're ready for the next assignment to be given at the next large group session. So if you want to know how those assignments flow, you can look at the spreadsheet that she shared, and that has the dates when each of these things will be due.
Yeah.
Can you zoom in just a little bit, Jesse?
Yeah.
So the assignment, for example, so let's take the PACER data. So this is something that is getting assigned at the December visit, and they're going to have a month to fill it out. And basically they just need to have it ready so that we can talk about it at the January 1st meeting. But then we're going to have a needs assessment assigned, and then they're going to have a little bit longer for that one. And then if you move down, the stakeholder map is where we start following this plan. So they'll have until 2 weeks before the session at ADFM to complete it, and then you'll have another 2 weeks. You'll have that 2 weeks until the 22nd when we have the ADFM session. And then the strategic plan is something that they're going to be working on throughout the year. So we've broken it up into 3 separate timeframes when they're going to have a certain portion of it delivered. So they're going to start by having an outline and a vision statement that they'll get to you. And then while they're working on that, we're going to talk about some other leadership principles, and they'll discuss the leadership philosophy. And if you could move down again, then the strategic plan is going to be updated with short-term wins that they have planned on having or that they have already achieved. as part of their strategic plan. And so that will be something specific to then the next iteration. Plus, you'll expect to see some further development. And then the final will be due just before NAPCRG. And in this case, we actually gave you 4 weeks to review that rather than 2, because that's going to be a bigger deal. And then whenever NAPCRG opens up for poster abstract submission, we're going to require that they submit the abstract of their summative experience with the fellowship, and also an abstract for the scholarly activity that they're doing, either as completed work or work in progress. Whether or not they get accepted is not going to be up to us, but we'll just have the requirement that they submit them. And I'm going to anticipate that they will be able to use the later fellowship submission date, because fellows have a different submission deadline than the rest of us.
Stephen, I'm sorry, I didn't listen closely enough, I guess. When are they expected to submit to NAPCRG?
Whenever it opens up, and I'm not sure what the submission deadline is going to be for that one. So
Right.
they'll send out an email
And
And
the
then
reason I ask that is my memory is that NAPCRG has a ridiculously early submission deadline compared to a lot of the other conferences. I
Yeah.
think it's really, really early. And I'm not sure that these folks are going to be able to be done that quickly. Just because, again, my memory says that submission deadline is really early. Maybe the fellows deadline is later though. And the follow-on to that is, would it be acceptable for them to submit to STFM as a fellow submission instead? Because like STFM, their submission is much later and is actually right around this time of year. I'm just throwing it out there as an option.
Yeah, so that's not a bad idea, actually, to submit to STFM. One of the main reasons why I thought to have them submit to NAPCRG, number one, the only thing that they need to submit by the submission deadline is an abstract. And so they should have enough information, at least for the abstract. And then one of the requirements is that for NAPCRG, they have the summative presentation anyway, right? So we're asking them to build a presentation regardless. So this is basically just having the assignment that they're going to submit an abstract for the presentation that we're asking them to build anyway, so that it could potentially be a poster or an oral presentation that they give during NAPCRG.
Okay, thanks, appreciate it.
I don't know if you saw, Dean, the fellowship, the med student resident fellow deadlines, August.
Yeah, that's not too bad, I guess.
Yeah,
It
I mean,
might, though, to be honest, it might take some convincing to have them consider our fellows in the fellows category, because I think they're thinking like post-residency fellows.
No.
I don't know.
You need to really push for that. I think that this is a fellowship and it's appropriate to be in that category. As long, I mean, maybe not have them compete. I mean, one of the things is there's like competition. So maybe that's not fair, to have them compete for the awards and things.
Yeah, it would be worth a conversation. It would be worth a conversation, at least. I mean, NAPCRG is a co-sponsor of BRC. However, their governance structure and the way that they manage their programs are a little bit more separate than how ADFM has handled it. So
yeah.
I don't know.
The other issue is we're talking specifically about fellowship products. I don't know that I would consider them fellows if they were submitting their own research for something. But when we're talking about they're submitting products of a fellowship program, I don't see why that wouldn't.
Yeah, that does seem like I think we could at least make that case, whether or not they would waive the competitive piece of it. I feel less convinced of that, but I do think that we could probably at least target the later submission with that.
And if we don't,
Warn
then
them
it's going to be the same thing. They're just submitting an abstract.
Okay. Awesome.
Ian, did you have another?
I have a couple of comments. If I can save it to later, though. I don't want to derail the direction. I mean,
No, go for it.
they definitely were triggered by that discussion. A couple of things. One of the things, Stephen and Pete, that you know, I'm working on a curriculum for global mental health for governors in the Philippines around, you know, it's very similar in a lot of ways to, like, you know, how they get ready with a lot of executive coaching and things. And some of the things that we found that, you know, those super busy people, which we are as well, they really like things like very brief videos and podcasts and things of that sort, which they can use as different ways of getting training in. And I actually don't know to what extent the literature around the executive coaching from the Harvard Business Review, for example, has topics that might be really relevant, which might be recommended as part of the, you know, things that people listen, you know, take in. You know, people have different learning styles, and I just thought I'd bring that up as, you know, being something that might be helpful for, you know, to deepening the experience of moving forward with some of these goals.
Yeah, I love it. If
Yeah.
you have specific suggestions, we should absolutely make them available to the fellows.
Okay, great. I'll take a look for them because I've been trying to find some of those things personally. So the second thing was, you know, I'm an implementation scientist, as is, well, there are a few people who have expertise who are on the faculty who have, Debbie Cohen, for example, in implementation science. And, you know, a lot of this stuff, I wonder to what extent it would be worth, like, you know, if they're thinking about making changes in their organization, you know, there's a lot of overlap between the business, you know, a lot of the stuff in implementation science came from business operations change and all of that. So it's not like, you know, it's not already kind of built in there. But the language of implementation science might be helpful for them to be thinking about, because that's becoming more of a set of concepts and principles that we're using for practice change, you know, clinical change. So I just wondered if there might be a place for something about talking about the overlaps and how you might think about the principles of implementation, you know, science and how that overlaps or doesn't with this kind of organizational change. So just another thought that came into my head.
Yeah, as we're looking through the different session agendas and looking how the curriculum has been developed so far, the main thing that Pete and I want is to have this turn into something great. And right now, I think it's something good. And ideas like that, I think, are probably going to be what the transition is about. If we catch things early enough, we may be able to program it into this year's curriculum. So Jesse, if you wouldn't mind just sending out the ones that we had last year. So Ian, the things that we did last year, we already have some templated changes, but if you wanted to look through what we did and say, I think this would fit here, you know, if you have a specific curricular suggestion, I think that would be great. I'd for sure welcome that. So just as an example, we got some suggestions from Benny and Bill about ways to revise the curriculum, and they made a very good point that we should probably talk about the first step of the Cotter model, which is establishing a sense of urgency. We should talk about that at session number 1 and not wait until session number 2. And I said, yeah, that's a really good point. And so, you know, that was sent in early enough that we've been able to make that change, and that's the way we'll move forward this time.
Great.
I think that's really the value of pulling in these different folks who are coming at this from sort of different perspectives, and the sort of interdisciplinary model that you guys have started to build. This makes it really cool, and the ability to be flexible and sort of add things in or remove things partway through is helpful. So I think even laying that out at the beginning too with the fellows, like this is a sort of living curriculum and we might make changes.
I mean, I think the fellows are a great resource for coming up with great ideas for modification, right? So that's exactly the way to go, is to have it grow, and they'll be into the idea of helping build the curriculum. That's always a rewarding thought.
Totally. And I think what we I guess knew intellectually, but remembered, like going through the process, is that these folks many of them are already well-established researchers and leaders in their own institutions, and so have a lot to bring to the table in terms of teaching each other as well. And that's, I mean, true leads to Radian, but the sort of the value of pulling people from different places together to share. And so,
yeah. One other, if it's okay, I'm sorry for talking so much, but one other thing that has been coming up a lot, and one of the fellows is from UCSD, where I've been talking to them a lot about that, because of Rusty Kallenberg's energy. I've just been talking to them about what they can do and what they've done already, and they have an interesting situation. Everyone knows they've always been at the top of the list of NIH funding, but they oh yeah, sorry about that. So the point of my question is that there are these different levels of what their organization needs to do, and their different needs based on how advanced both the institution is already and what they where they're targeting. Are they targeting someone trying to get people to fit in a few papers a year or a paper a year, or are they talking about NIH funding? So, and those are pretty different. They're related, but they're pretty different. So I just see that heterogeneity as something that would be awesome for us to be able to effectively deal with. So.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that we structured the curriculum the way that we did was to have it be more process oriented in terms of their process of getting to the bottom of what their organization needs. And we landed on change management as a fairly broad model of a process that can apply in whatever situation you need it to. And there are certain models that people have created around specifically research integrity and research productivity and the different levels that can exist at. And the model we've really centered on there is the one by Cook et al., where they have these 4 different levels of organization, from the personal to the network, and then 6 different domains. And so it gives them the opportunity to look throughout their organization and say, which level needs the most work and which domain needs the most work. And the goal is to have them come up with a process whereby they decide, where do I spend my energy? Because I know where the needs are, not just what's in front of me, but I've taken a pretty global look. And now I know, because of these data, this is exactly where I need to go. So as you're looking through their products and you're wondering, how do I grade it? One of the things that you're grading on is how effectively they took the model and applied it to their own institution. Now, if you're looking through this and you say, here's how we could enhance the learner experience to give them more opportunity to customize what we're offering them to what they need, then let's do that too.
In short, we don't have any holy grails. So
no, I mean, we've thought about all of the different pieces, right? Nothing in the fellowship is accidental, but at the same time, nothing is sacred. So we did the best that we've thought to do, But if we, and if somebody has an idea and I don't think it'll work as well, I will explain why I don't think it will work as well. But if I do think it'll work better, it's just like, okay, my idea is done, your idea is here, and this is what we're going to do then.
Yeah, I mean, I think I forgot to say, like, I think this looks awesome. I should have started with saying that before I made these little minor comments, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm really excited about it. I think it's awesome what you guys have put together here.
Yeah, Ian, don't hold back, for sure. Don't hold back.
All right, awesome. I am going to move us along a little bit here to kind of review the scholarly project, and I think this this would be good because we've gone through some changes from last year that I think Dean would be happy to hear, and then just an overview also, obviously for Ian hasn't heard about this. So I do kind of want to hand this back off to you guys. I know I didn't, this was happening more in the small groups, which I wasn't really witness to. So here's kind of a breakdown of it all. There will be a scholarly project that happens over the duration of the fellowship, and that is decided within the small group. So it is a group project, and that's determined by them, and you can kind of check out. So there's no requirement here, but I think I'm gonna pass that back to you two, Pete and Stephen, to have any elaboration on just kind of the faculty role in this project and what we want to see from the faculty here.
Sorry. This was something that we implemented it last year, and it's been a way for the fellows to interact together and also develop some content expertise in the realm of research capacity development, so that they can always point to, I've done research in this area, and and they can start becoming experts in this topic. It also builds the bench for future iterations of the fellowship and people who want to create research capacity, especially in family medicine. We learned last year that we should be a little bit more rigid on the timeline for people, and that we should be a little bit more prescriptive about topics. We tried to leave it up to them, but they didn't have enough experience in the area to really start developing questions until quite a ways into the fellowship. So basically, we're going to hand them a list and say, pick from here. We will entertain other suggestions if you really feel strongly you want to do something else. But otherwise, here's the list, take one, adjust it as you see fit. And then they will send that topic proposal to me, and then Pete and I will talk about it. The main reason to keep it at our level is just to make sure that everything synchronizes well, so that we're not dealing with something where one project is cannibalizing another or whatever. But once Pete and I have approved the topic, then it falls back to the faculty of the individual small groups to help them pace themselves such that they can have a research protocol developed by March. And that would sort of be the later end of the date. If they could get something sooner, that would be ideal. But I really wouldn't want a protocol any later than that, or else then they're running out of time to really start collecting, analyzing, writing up any data throughout the rest of the year. And then the submission is going to be determined. But then the project really needs to be wrapped up by NAPGRG 2023. This year we have a project that is getting wrapped up by then. We're creating the PACER tool. The write-up is not going to be done. And so I said to the fellows, anybody who wants to have their name on a manuscript, let's keep going together for the purposes of the fellowship, project accomplished. If you want to bail out now, that's totally fine. But if you want to be part of manuscript preparation and publication, then volunteer. And that's certainly something that could continue with any of these projects as well. But there does need to be a logical end date such that we're not requiring any input from fellows past the end of the fellowship year. Any questions about the research project?
I don't have a question, just a comment. I hate to discourage people thinking big, but I tell you what, trying to go for IRB approval in the course of a one-year fellowship, it just is not particularly realistic unless you're going for exempt status. It just really isn't. So I think that maybe encouragement might be the way to do it, but you know, groups are encouraged to think about projects that would not require a full IRB submission, something like that.
Yeah.
Just because at most institutions, certainly at mine, you will not have time to get through a full IRB proposal. Won't happen.
And the topics that Pete and I have come up with so far are ones that would not require a full IRB proposal. So as an example, one that somebody could pick from would actually be a literature review on different processes that people use for a site analysis. What's the term I'm looking for that we use? Site survey.
Oh,
Needs assessment.
Needs assessment. There we go. Yeah. It's like trying to remember the word banana and you're like, I can't think of it.
Long yellow thing.
Yeah.
Good job.
I actually did that this summer. I wanted watermelon and I couldn't think of it. So I was like, kids, give me the red fruit. And so they, of course, they made fun of me. And now every time we have watermelon, it's red fruit. But so with the needs assessment, we found some models for doing it that were based off of different types of situations, but there wasn't one written specifically for building research capacity. So that's something that somebody could do, is create one of these review articles for how to do this in the context of BRC. Another one was to take the PACER tool and see how its internal validity is. So there are different. Those are just two quick examples.
I was just going to add a note of possible synergy is that we just found out that the ABFM Foundation has approved our proposal and related request for funding to hold a research summit at, or probably in conjunction with NAPCRG 2023. So not this year, but next year. And yeah, and you know, it's one of those ones where you're like, yay, we got it. Now we have to do it. So lots of thought going into that at this point, but I think there's going to be quite a bit of like in between and background work, including possibly some, I'm trying to not use the word white paper, although there's not a great substitute. Perspectives paper, I think, is one that we've substituted in. And or publications and some background and things that might, Stephen and Pete, we'd sort of already talked about potentially having the fellows do some of the sort of like, or BRC at large doing. Anyway, there might be some room for synergy on some of the fellows projects, which would then meaningfully contribute to this process. And I don't have enough details yet to totally get there, but that might come up again as some other options for the fellows. Not that they would have to do it, but that it might be an option that would contribute to that process. And you'll all be hearing more as we get a little more organized.
Okay, fantastic. So we are nearing the end of the document here and almost our time. So we're doing pretty good here. And then we have really already gone through this. All of these assignments are what you see here. So Stephen already broke that down pretty much. So I don't think there's much more to go over.
Let me just, so that you guys are all tracking why we do each of these assignments. The research capacity status survey is really just a quick survey that they give to themselves and 10 other people to just start thinking about the kinds of things to pay attention to. This is not a really rigorous survey. They'll go through the results themselves at that December 7th meeting. So we're going to give it to them at NAPCRG and they'll have a couple of weeks to fill it out. really the thing is just like make some copies, hand it to some people, look at what they say, nothing really formal. But it's just to get their brains thinking. And then the PACER tool data is going to be these research indicators, you know, the bibliometrics and you know, staff FTE, basically understanding who is my department and what are they doing right now. The due date, I think a month is going to be enough time to gather that, but we may need to revise that deadline a little bit if it looks like they're not able to. I think we talked about all the other assignments.
All right, perfect. Yeah, any other questions on any of the assignments or any elaboration that we're wanting here? Great. Okay. And then, like I said, with the Google Drive, it'll be my favorite ever if you go ahead and bookmark that tab and refer to that. Always get the emails no matter what of where is this? And it is
Jesse, where
great
is that? Can you put that in the chat or
Yeah.
or can I get
Yes.
this?
So this will be the it's true. The really delicious, high quality hotel menus.
I'm doing my best to move everything over to Teams. This is a frustrating
Team. Yeah, I know. We're not Microsoft people, and it really messes with things.
So will that matter, Amanda, that you're in the UW ecosphere? Like, I guess it's okay, right? That they keep saying you can't use Google anymore, but is that not true? I guess we'll just ignore it.
You know, that's an interesting question. And so I have two separate jobs. My jobs are separate. I have two separate computers, everything's separate. So for me, it doesn't matter because I use my ADFM email for this, but I also use Drive a lot in my UW job and it hasn't kicked me out yet. So
Yeah, I know that we have gotten here and there scattered kind of institutional blocks on Drive. We're going to cross our fingers that is not the case here. If so, I will also probably be with every time I upload something to Drive, I will also be sending an email. So there will at least be, there'll be an email with the attachments. It'll just be an email with also this link and saying like, here's your refer back to. So, you know, if in 3 weeks you want to go look at something that I sent and you can't find my email, you'll be able to go there and everything will be stored. So at minimum, it should be easy to get the, at least the email with attached documents. But for now, we're going to try this out as being our kind of host of all materials. We do have another platform, and I think the issue is just, it did the same thing, but having that secondary login and sign in, we just don't feel like people were checking it. So hopefully this will be good. If there are issues and you can't access things, let me know, because we can see what we can work around.
I will say we've been trying to figure out workarounds for people running into issues with Google. I think for this sort of thing where you really need it to be like a storage, it kind of makes more sense than like we've been having trouble with Google Forms as our platform for like survey data entry. So we just actually purchased a license for SurveyMonkey to try that out. But I think with this, as a smaller group, it's a little bit more manageable.
Speaking of surveys, Pete and Lynn are on the assessment committee, and they will be working on processes for feedback from the fellows. This is another thing where input from you guys in terms of how to make this better, what kind of feedback to get is going to be the most helpful, I think would really help them out.
Yeah. And so this year, what we're also going to do is have time during each in person, like large group session, in person being virtual and actual physical in person for them to complete the evals at that time. We had trouble getting evaluations back. And so, we're going to be doing smaller evaluations more frequently and kind of go from there. In addition to like a global one at the end. and potentially midway, because I suspect they may think that certain topics are not very helpful until they go through it and see the big picture. And so I'm curious to see that change. If there
One
is.
last thing, as you're mentioning that I wanted to make sure to mention, when we have them learn something, we tried to make the meat of the learning be through the pre-reading, so that the time together is really for discussion and implementation. And if you do a lecture, while you're doing the lecture, if you find yourself doing more than 50% of the talking, then you're probably doing too much talking. So trying to find a way to have it be very participation focused.
Yeah, I think that the faculty is likely to be pretty, in tune with that, but it would be great to have us, as a faculty, get a chance to talk about stuff like that right before we start meeting with our, running these sessions, just so everyone's, level set.
Do you guys want to have another, we have these meetings starting at 12:30. Would you guys want to just meet like a half hour beforehand as the faculty to brief what's going to happen in the
I
meeting?
think that's a great idea. I'd love to talk, with the other two faculty in my group about that, before we start working on it.
What do you think, Jesse and Pete?
I think we could definitely offer the Zoom time. I do feel like it is a big chunk of time on Wednesdays that people are already committing themselves to. So it might not be possible for everyone, but we could certainly offer the space and say, and have the group faculty kind of decide of like, yeah, I have the time to do that and we should break that down. But it's a good
$750. Come on, we gotta.
come on. Yeah, I think that
I
we could
certainly
make the
wouldn't be
space.
able to make it every time if we did.
No, just to get, early on so that we get connected and level set. I don't think it would need to be every time.
Well, maybe Pete, you or I try to be there, and then if it's just you and nobody else shows up, then it is what it is. But should we just try to set open to faculty? I mean, do we just try to set the expectation? I mean, we've got a third of the faculty here, so
yeah.
What do people think?
Time's tight, so I think at the beginning it's very important, and I like Ian's suggestion. Maybe the first time or two, have it available, and then go from there. I have to apologize. I need to run because I have to run a meeting that starts in 2 minutes, and I have to get to it. So,
all right. Thank you
Thanks,
guys so
guys.
much. Please feel free to email with any questions or anything that comes up.